welcome to the show. It is May 11th, 2025. I'm Eric Murphy, and with me today is, let's bring him in, Secular Rarity. Hey,
Hey, what's up?
how's it going, buddy?
Oh, pretty good, man. I woke up this morning, and the very first thing that I did was I made sure to thank and appreciate my wonderful, wonderful mother. And I'm positive that everybody else out there did that because they're all good children. I'm sure nobody forgot.
Oh, God, when was it?
Literally today. Today's
It is
Mother's Day.
today. Okay, so I didn't miss it.
You have
Oh my
you're good.
God.
You're good. Guys, you're good. Okay? Look, this is why I said it right away, okay? So that you have all the time in the world to prepare now, all right? I mean, you should have already known, so you are kind of a bad child, but it's okay. It's all right, folks.
It's understood at this point. All right, so between you and me and everybody watching, we're just going to keep this to ourselves and not tell anybody that just happened, okay? I'm sure that this will not get. Oh,
no, my mom won't see this for sure. So,
all right. So let's talk a bit. It's been a month. What have you been up to? What's going on?
Oh, dude, running around a bunch, as always, which is great. I'm doing my best to, be staying busy, active, just trying to continue to connect with different groups and different peoples. Over the last month, we've had a whole new event that we've been doing in Middle Tennessee. We have this brand new every other Sunday called Secular Occasions for Arts and Reason. So SOAR. So we're kind of keeping with that theme of like rising and lifting and connecting and all that good stuff. We just did last this Friday that just passed. It was called Peace, Love, and Poetry. So we were down in Murfreesboro, and it was just about 4 dozen people, all coming up with like 3 to 4 minutes apiece, and some people wrote original poetry, and some people wrote things brand new for the event. Some people brought things that they had written many years ago. Others recited famous works, and it was great. We just all hung around and had a good time. So yeah, I mean, whenever I am not here, I am running around trying to do my best to just get opportunities for our people to get out there. So
yeah, I love that. And it's not always about skepticism. Sometimes it can just be about poetry. I love that.
Yeah.
Good. That's so I love that. All right. I have not been nearly as community building as you've been, so I got a cat pet.
Yeah, you've got a cat. That takes a lot of time, honestly.
Yeah.
They're very needy.
No, so this week's been pretty good. I got commissioned to read an audiobook.
Nice.
Right. I'm also picking up some more clients for the coaching that I do for people who want to start podcasts and YouTube channels. And so
Good.
it's feeling like things are moving well, and I'm really happy about it. So yeah, but not everybody's interested in our personal lives. Let's talk about the topic today. Indigo children. I thought this was dead. Like this was dead before you and I were born, right? Like
so I think there was a decent resurgence in like the 90s, early 2000s. Like,
okay.
I think there was like a decent resurgence. So, and I don't talk about this very much. I can't think of any time that on a show, for instance, I've mentioned this. From about the age of 4 or 5, I was told that I was a child with supernatural abilities by many people in my life. It was shown to me, Eric. Okay. With science.
With science.
Mathematic equations.
Oh shit. Okay.
I had about 3 or 4 different astrological charts done by completely different people Okay. That all supposedly were really, really good at astrology. Okay. All of that shit. And gave me, they gave my parents packets of information that all described how I was an indigo child. So, just in case
Okay.
anybody's wondering, yes, I do have supernatural abilities. I can, in fact, levitate.
I
I can.
so now okay, so let's talk about what the heck this is, because I'm seeing a
Yeah.
lot of people in the live chat are like, "What the hell is
What
going
is it?
on? Children with superpowers?" Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Children with superpowers is a thing that people talk about and talk about seriously. And the reason it's getting brought up is because someone close to me in my life is getting sucked into this thing, and they're just like, "Eric, you really need to take a look at these children with superpowers." And I'm like, "Are you fucking serious?" Like, not only is this damaging to literally everyone involved, um, but it's yeah, it's so wild. So let's let people in. What is an indigo child to you, at least?
Yeah, I mean, my basic understanding has always been that indigo children are a specific group of human beings that are born with very specific astrological criteria that then allows them to tap into the divine, supernatural, the spirit world, all that type of shit. So just kind of in general, a lot of it had to do with, where the moon was when you were born and what star was above you and all that shit. And then, yeah, basically
Interesting.
you got superpowers.
So,
So I could see people's auras. That was one of my big superpowers, by the way. So,
uh,
yeah.
so um, my understanding of indigo children is really different.
Okay. Yeah. Tell me.
Yeah. So it was something that spread through the 60s, and then I just looked it up again while you were saying it, that yeah, it came back in the late 90s. um, that had to do with parents who were noticing that their children were not able to socially interact with other kids in the same way,
Yeah.
and it lined up a lot with autism. um,
Yeah.
and so a lot of kids um, who had autism were told you have magic powers, and
Mm-hmm.
essentially your autism gives you a magic power, or whatever thing that it is that is causing you to obviously not connect on the same level because you're reading their minds, obviously. um, and so you have this system where you are teaching parents that their child has superpowers, and
Mm-hmm.
it's incredibly frustrating for a lot of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And I, okay, so
So
before I get into why I'm frustrated about it, talk to me about your journey with it, because you actually
no,
have
no,
lived experience.
yeah, and that's really fascinating. And I just did a quick search on some stuff too to try to, because that was a side that I was never aware of.
Yeah.
So there are these other aspects I want to mention to people, because this was the side that I was very familiar with,
Okay.
and this was the side as it was presented to me. And I think there's also something kind of sinister on this too, but it's a little bit better hidden than what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So some of these aspects are about, supposedly about indigo children, right?
Right.
Are high intelligence and intuition,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's this child always seems to be saying these profound things, for a 6-year-old, right?
Right.
Creative and energetic,
Mm-hmm. So
very sensitive to emotional pain, especially of others, resistance to authority, spiritual advancement. So all of those types of things, right?
yeah, it sounds
Are
like sounds
are
like ADHD.
it kind of does. And the other side of it that I think it is a bit of that. So every parent's child is the best in the world, right? Every parent's child is the most beautiful, the most intelligent. They're so creative, they're so wonderful. I think for some parents, they they jumped into this space because they wanted reassurance that they were doing a good job parenting.
Yeah.
And so what they did was they saw these little aspects about their child that, for instance, I mean, kids are a lot more aware of things than we recognize, So most kids, as they experience their life, are going to have at least a couple of moments where they do or say something that makes us go like, what the fuck? Because it's like we don't realize what their sponge of a brain is like soaking in. But yeah, that was the thing for me was I was always very interested, and still am, in like, artist and creative type of spaces. I have a lot of energy, as people can generally tell. I don't tend to say I'm highly intelligent. That's not really how I describe it.
We'll say it for you. You are.
Sure. I enjoy learning things. I definitely do have a bit of a resistance to authority, for sure. Like I get a little hot under the collar and stuff. But and when I was younger, when I was a child, spiritual advancement stuff, I would have said that was where I sat. Again, one of the last things for me to completely step away from in like a religious or spiritual context was the idea that the universe was entirely connected and actively trying to send me a message, and everything was a message. Right. And the fact that I could always interpret them perfectly was because of the fact that I was an indigo child. Right. It was because I did actually, there was actually something about me inherently as Elliot that it was like, oh man, like, thank goodness, you're an indigo child, because otherwise you wouldn't have figured out what that cloud was supposed to mean, and so yeah, like that again, I could see people's auras. I could walk around and tell people like, man, this is how you're feeling today, and this is what you need to do for your spiritual health and shit. Like as a 7-year-old, I'm sure a lot of people thought it was cute and endearing, and I'm sure the rest of them thought it was insufferable.
Well, so the insufferability part, I hate to sound dismissive. I have fully like given into the fact that I'm insufferable, and I assume that if you like me and you're a friend of mine, you probably are too. So like, I don't even mind so much the insufferability piece of it. And I did get corrected. I just want to make sure that I'm clear about this, right? So indigo children is, does correspond with ADHD. The autism piece was crystal children.
Oh, okay.
And so where you were able to see auras, a crystal child was telepathic.
Right.
And is able to read minds. So I mixed those two up, and I want to make sure that I clarify that. They're both bullshit, but making sure that I'm, saying the right, describing the right thing is important.
It's true.
So people might ask, why are you frustrated with parents thinking that their children are special, right? What's the big deal there? Well, there actually are some really big deals, and it gets worse and worse and worse. So I didn't always work as a YouTuber. I was planning on working in special ed. My mom was a special ed teacher. I worked in special ed classrooms for a very long time, and I went to college so that I could work with, diagnose, and help put together education plans for kids in special ed. And I had some serious frustrations when parents would not get children the help that they needed because they were unwilling to accept that their child had something going on that was making it more difficult for them to interact in class or, study or anything like that. And it's not necessarily to say that there's something wrong, but if you are having a hard time, if you're having a hard time focusing, then making sure that you're getting the help that you need, that fucking helps. And people don't do that so if you get your kid the help that they need and you call them an indigo child, cool. You can take that to the bank. I don't care. But if you don't get your kid help, it's a problem. And then it gets really, really gross when it comes to kids with autism. So I'm going to see how quickly I can speed run getting demonetized, because I've got a really, really dark take and people can be upset if they want. This is something that I've at least lived and experienced, right?
Well, hang on. Before you do that,
Okay.
let me try as the
Are you going to
co-host.
cushion this before I put your face
All I'm
on
gonna
screen
do,
while I
all
say
I'm
it?
gonna do is make sure that everybody knows that the lines are open. You guys, give us
Oh
a
yeah,
call.
shit.
Before we get completely demonetized by Eric's rant. Now grab your
And
popcorn and get fucking ready.
And if
But
you
go ahead, give
disagree,
us a call.
please, yeah, dude. Phone number is 412-SKEPGEN. That's 412-753-7436. Or you can go to tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. That's tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. We actually have several call screeners on the line, all ready to take your calls. We are ready for you. So today is the day. Call in. We've got open lines. All right. You know what? Actually, since this is going to be problematic, I'm just going to put your picture over the entire screen. That way, might get connected with you instead of me.
You can just pretend as if
Okay.
I'm the one that's saying.
So, no, I'm not going to do that. Okay. So when I was working in special ed, I worked with a specific subset of kids. They were kids who were not able to potty themselves. There were kids who were not able to feed themselves, and they were all nonverbal. These were kids who had a different plan in mind, right? Where there were plenty of kids who would get circulated amongst, classrooms where they could. We did our best with these kids, but honestly, the goal was trying to teach them how to communicate their needs, and that's where it was left. I was changing diapers of middle school kids. Like, it was a different set of needs.
Right.
And I think that fucking, especially in the 90s, right? There was this series of movies that came out, kind of Beautiful Mind stuff, that if your child has a disability, that means they have a superpower somewhere else. Right? If they are unable to interact with or really, seem to develop in just education ways, like other kids, then they must be a savant of some sort. And so you just need to find that thing that makes them magical and wonderful. And kids are just fucking kids, and people are just people. And when you do that to a parent, then instead of looking at their kid as somebody that they love and are going to just, meeting them where they are, you have parents looking at their kids wondering, well, how are you magical? Like, what is my kid's magical thing that redeems them? And I don't even think the parents think about it that way. But it's something that I've seen over and over and over again. And it's heartbreaking. Because I don't think that you should sell parents on that. In the same way that, I get really, really mad about the whole anti-vax, vaccines cause autism thing. Because what you're doing is you're telling parents that, number one, autism is a problem. And number two, you gave it to your kids as some kind of, poor parenting because you got them vaccinated. Like, the level of pain and guilt and emotional angst that you're putting on a family by doing that is truly atrocious. On top of the realistic impact that it has on everybody else. But people don't always talk about the impact that has on special ed. They talk about, well, when you just have a generation that doesn't get vaccinated, what does that have to do with everybody else? Okay, we talk about that, but we don't talk about the negative impact it very specifically has in special ed. And it is painful and it's frustrating. And the crystal children piece is what came to me from someone I care about. And we got to talk about this, because if I have a platform, I want to shout from the rooftops, hey, not only is this bullshit, it is the number of places where, number one, people can be taken advantage of. And number two, it's adding in unnecessary just angst and pain into a family. It's right here, right? It's one thing to say, hey, my kid is special. That's fine. But for this crystal child thing, and especially in its newest incarnation, I believe it's a podcast called The Telepathy Tapes, is what, yeah.
You're fucking kidding me.
No, no. And
Jesus.
what they're saying is that children like the kids that I worked with who are unable to communicate, right, nonverbal, that those children have developed a telepathic link to their caretakers, and actually they have telepathy. They can read everybody's minds, and so they don't need to use language. They can just communicate telepathically. And then what they do is
Oh my
they,
God.
yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just went to the very first website, and I'm just reading through this list of traits and characteristics, ways to like, point out your child as a crystal child.
Hmm.
So here's one that's pretty interesting. I just thought, just a little odd, considering some of the other ones are things like intuitive and psychic abilities. So like, okay, if your child's exhibiting, telekinesis, like maybe they're a crystal child. Here's another criteria, and y'all tell me what you think about this. Delayed speech or communication.
Hmm.
So here's another. High sensitivity. Overwhelm from sensory input.
Hmm. They don't have autism. They have superpowers.
Yeah, I mean, that screams to me like that's what they're getting at there. And that is wild. And the rest of it is just pabulum. I mean, it's just general bullshit. It's just a strong sense of purpose. It's a child, like they can't
Yeah.
have that strong of a sense of
Well,
purpose.
but also it's couched in a very subjective way that
Right.
you would depend on the caretaker, the person who was most wanting to find something special about their kid, to go, oh yeah, no, my kid has that.
Uh-huh.
And it gets worse. It gets worse. So there are different methods of communication that you can have with kids that are nonverbal. One of the big ones that we had is we had communication tablets, right? And so we would have, picture of, potty or, play, food, various needs and wants, their favorite games, things they want to do, so that they can just tap it and it could say, what they want. And most of those kids were able to use that to a degree, right? Some were more complex than others, but we had that was a huge step, right? There's a similar but also incredibly different form of communication, which is directed like touching. So if the child is not pressing on the board, you take their hand and help them press what they want. Hopefully that's what they wanted.
Mm-hmm. The second one seems a little harder to,
Yeah,
know for sure.
And so looking into the telepathy tapes, they absolutely switch back and forth between, showing communication pads, tablets are incredibly useful, and this is something that we know, and they're using that, which I totally agree with, to try and justify this absolutely debunked method of communication, and trying to say that they're the same thing. So using one to prop up the other, which is not legitimate, is not backed up by evidence, and it's just not good. And so all of a sudden now you are incentivizing parents to think that whatever they think their kid wants is what their kid actually wants, because they think that they're telepathically linked with their child, and so they obviously know what their child wants because they're communicating that with them psychically through their brain, which absolutely can, to me, overshadow really taking a look at what that kid needs, because you are now just communicating with their caretaker.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
No, please keep going.
Yeah. So there are a lot of reasons people can be really upset at me about this, right? I'm not trying to infantilize anyone. I'm not trying to say that there are problems with, or that, there's something wrong with parents who want, like, everyone here is hurt by this. And it kills me, So where we might talk about, indigo children, or parents just trying to find ways to say, hey, my kid is special. In this case, with the telepathy tapes, it is actively, to me, getting in the way of people being able to develop and teach communication with those kids. It also really warps the ability of the parent to understand their own child, because you don't need to as much. You just have a brain link with them.
Right. You can just tell them everything telepathically, and then you know they got it.
Yeah. So it's frustrating. It's frustrating because when it's also been tested, right? So there was even in the tests that the indigo tapes people did, there was a little girl who was nonverbal, and her mother was just like, hey, my kid is psychic, right? My kid talks to me all the time, and it's just brilliant, and it's all psychic. And they did the directed communication on the board, and this kid had some very profound thoughts, and was even able to see things that she wasn't supposed to be able to see, right? That it's not just reading minds, it's to a degree being able to see through walls or whatever the case is. See, what's on the card, you can see it because you can see through my eyes, kind of thing. When they tried it with the girl's father, it didn't work. When they tried it with other people, it didn't work. And so instead of saying, oh, hey, this might be a thing that you have worked into this family, and this might be a thing that this mother is now fully believing with her daughter. And the response that they have is, negativity and skepticism breaks that connection. It gets in the way. And so obviously, if you don't believe and you're not willing to believe, then you don't like your kid as much, and your kid is not going to be able to communicate with you the same way that they're going to communicate with a believing parent.
And you'll never have the love and connection that I have with my child.
Right. Even with the same child, parent to parent. What a fucked up thing. I am absolutely blown away with the fact that this is continuing to happen. Right? I mean, this started really in the 60s. And you're right. I looked it up, 90s. Maybe that's why it's something that pops into my head. I think so much about it.
There was some new book that was written around then that made it all come back. But I'm going to shift just a little bit. It's still in the same vein, okay? But
yeah, definitely.
This might piss off more people. But I think both you and I are hot about this issue. We both are emotional because we think there is a lot of harm that can happen here.
Yeah, okay? Absolutely.
So I wanna just say this, and this might piss some people off, Okay, look, I'll let you know my bias, you guys. I'm a single 30-year-old dude in the South. Okay, I've never been married. I don't have kids. So that's where I'm starting from when I say this. Okay, I'm just gonna say this just pretty fucking blunt.
Maybe this is the day.
You're probably a bad parent. And if you don't fucking think that, you're probably a worse parent, because the information that we had about child raising at the time that you had your child, no matter the age of your child, it's better now. We have advanced it a lot, and I almost fucking guarantee you don't know about it. And that's okay. Look, I said all that. Okay, I dropped the bomb, but now I'm going to soften the blow a little bit. That's all right. Okay, you don't have to be perfect. In fact, you'll never be perfect. But what you should do is constantly ask yourself, is this really the best thing for my child? Not for me, not for what I want. Is this the best thing for my child? I'm about to stop on the way home and shove a milkshake and a fucking hamburger in this 3-year-old's face. Is that the best thing for my child? I'm going to raise this 5-year-old telling them that they can magically read people's minds or float or whatever the fuck it is. Talk to fucking birds. I don't care. Is that really the best thing for my child?
Well, here's where I need to push back on you, because
yeah, please.
Because the pushback that I've seen is people saying, what's so wrong with parents thinking their child is special?
So that's not what you're thinking. I would disagree that you're saying your child is special. What you're doing is you're lying. You are incorrect. It is your child can be special. That is a subjective, that is an opinion. That is something that we can have kind of a sliding scale and differing criteria. That is not the case with my child is magic. That is a massive, massive difference. That is like you taking your 3-year-old and saying, my child's a bodybuilder, and sitting them under a 500-pound fucking squat bar and letting go. That's what you're doing. You are setting, in the best case scenario, you are setting your child up to one day grow up to recognize that they have been lied to.
Well, see, that's...
Bring it on. Come on. Push back. Come on.
Yeah, no.
We got to get some people calling. I don't know. I figured if I pissed off parents, somebody would call.
That's true. That's true. No, we definitely still need calls. But I got to push back there because, number one, a lot of kids feel pressure to perform the way that their parents expect. And so that pressure to perform can make it a thing that child is going to continue to move forward. And so if that child is unable to then read minds, that child might take that as a personal failing.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so I don't know. I think that, like, I don't blame these parents, and my heart goes out to them. I get that. I was a little hot. I was trying to be a little hot. No, you're good.
They are victims of bad ideas, just the same as you and I were, right? That it is the case, you know. They have been swindled just like everybody else has, right? In all of these various movements, right? Because I mean, I had never really looked into the Crystal Children stuff, and so looking into that during this episode has just been wild because it sounds to me just so obviously bullshit, you know. But here's the thing.
But what is the motivation of these parents? Right?
Yeah.
Like
I know.
So if I'm going to give that hot under the collar thing,
yeah, go for it.
Right? I already called you, so feel free to call me on this.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. If you think that your child needs a redeeming characteristic, you have failed them as a parent.
I don't disagree with that. The only slight pushback, and I don't even know that it's really a pushback, is whether or not all of these parents are viewing it in that capacity, right? That's what I would agree that I think that's probably what's underlying a lot of this.
And I don't think they would admit that to themselves.
Right. Do they consciously recognize that that's what, because if you do, then I would undeny it. I'd say, oh yeah, you're a piece of shit, right? Like you're squarely in that category.
And I think that if they admitted that to themselves, they would know that too.
Yeah.
But probably. Like, really, honestly, like, if your child needs a redeeming characteristic, that means that them being who they are is not good enough for you. And fuck you.
Yeah.
Fuck you for that, for thinking that you're getting.
And the same is true if you're expecting your child to perform in a manner that adheres to exactly what you think is the correct way for them to live their lives. If the only way that you can be proud of your offspring is they accomplish a certain task a certain way in a certain time that you lay out for them, I mean, you're also a piece of shit. Again, like, I know I don't have, Elliot, it's tough to have kids. You know, they don't come with a fucking manual. Yeah, I know, but child psychology has been a goddamn field of study for decades.
It has.
We're not just making this shit up. Like, we know certain things. We have certain things that we know that from the ages from 3 to 5, this is what they fucking need. Like, it is not crazy. We do have really good information. Nothing perfect, but all of these people that are going out there running around going, yeah, I don't know, man. I just think it's crazy these days. Trying to like communicate with your child and have like a conversation about where the kid wants to go to dinner. You know, I'm the fucking parent. I make the money. That kid will eat whatever the fuck I tell him to. And it's like, yeah, so you see why you, as an adult, are very much not accomplishing the most basic things about living in a society. Do you recognize why you're struggling with that and why your child will if you continue to? That's what I'm talking about.
So I do want to offer another side to it. It is something that I've definitely developed over years of feeling very strongly the same way as you. And that is that often parents who find themselves in this situation, the system has failed them somehow.
Totally with you, man. There's a whole bigger conversation about child rearing and how we take care of people in general. Yes.
And sure. So if the system has failed you and or failed your child, then going outside of the system to try and find some help makes sense.
I get it.
You know, and it's not always necessarily an ego thing either. It's not always necessarily a parent saying, you know, well, fuck it, I'm going to make the decision. Sometimes it's an absolute failure of the system. And part of it is us needing to recognize that, you know? And it goes further. And I think I lost my train of thought because I was going somewhere profound with this and I absolutely dropped it. But,
I was just bitching about parents wanting kids to perform certain ways, and we've got child psychology that we've developed over the last few years.
Yeah, lots of thoughts there.
Shit.
Lots of thoughts there.
Shit.
Because the thing is, I don't blame people who would view, you know, some things as fruits of a poisoned tree. You know, the beginnings of child psychology are pretty fucking heinous. That doesn't mean that it's wrong.
Yeah.
That
just all psychology though.
Yeah, and
it's all kind of fucking weird.
And so I do want to be realistic and say, you know, and you admit, right? We don't know all of the things, but the things that we do know, we should stick to. And
we have some good information.
Yeah, we really fucking do. And it just feels like it is creating this system that no one benefits from, that hurts everyone. It hurts the child. It hurts the parent.
Yeah.
It hurts their ability to grow in the future because you're doing this to the exclusion of methods of communication of, you know, I think that most parents of special ed kids wind up learning that your child is your child and they're just a different way. It is a different mode of interacting with the world and getting to know them and meeting them on their level and interacting with them in that space is deeply fulfilling and deeply rewarding and is such a beautiful thing when people put down their preconceived notions about what they think their child needs to live up to and meets them where their kid is at. I think the rest of the world can really fucking learn from special ed parents who finally put their ego out of the way to realize that point, right? I feel like this poisons it. And what an awful thing to rob them of, you know? And I do obviously want to put out, you know, and it has been said in many communities around these kinds of things that, you know, a disability is a disability when it negatively impacts your ability to interact with the world. Recognizing that there is a disability in a thing means that you can actually seek accommodations and things like that. And so calling a thing a disability doesn't make someone worse. It means that they may need extra help. Maybe it's extra time on a test, you know, for an indigo child, or maybe it's, you know, an IEP, right? A meeting with the teacher to determine what is going to work best for this child's education plan so that they can achieve the best that they can, you know? And yeah, so, all right, I'm off my soapbox. I've said about 5 different things that'll get me,
No, it's great.
fucking
No, we do have a
canceled by
couple of calls,
1,000 people.
Yeah, and before we grab those calls, I just wanted to mention this to just touch back on the point you mentioned about the societal failings in child rearing in general, because I think this is incredibly important. Okay, because again, you guys, not perfect. Okay, don't have everything figured out for sure, but here's one thing that we know undeniably, and it is absolutely disgusting that we live in a world where this happens, okay? We know that in the first few years of a child's life, proper diet, proper nutrition is one of the most critical fucking things ever. And once that is lost, once those years have passed, you cannot get it back. There is nothing that you will ever be able to do for a child that was malnourished between the ages of 1 and 3. We cannot get back that loss for that human being. 1 in 5 kids in the United States do not know where their next meal is coming from. That's disgusting.
Yeah.
That is absolutely atrocious. And to consider that number is a peak. That is a high, not a valley. Many people around the world experience a situation that is way worse than that. That is disgusting that we do not feed our children.
Yeah,
If we simply did that, we could fix a lot of things.
And also recognizing that with the international audience that this show has, I'm sure there are a lot of people who are looking at this channel going, wait, you don't do that?
Yeah.
No. This, like several other things, is something that the United States absolutely has in common with third world countries.
Yep.
And
we don't seem to do anything.
Yeah.
We really don't seem to.
No. Yeah. So, all right. Now that I've thoroughly bummed people out, who do you want to talk to? Let's talk to Alfred. I want to talk to Alfred first. Alfred in Texas, you're live on the show. Alfred? Hello? Oh, I think there's a bit of a delay. Can you hear me, bud?
Can you hear me? I can hear you.
Oh, good. Okay, you're just really, really low. I'm going to try and turn your volume up, but if you can speak a little louder into the mic on your end, we'll try and meet you in the middle, okay?
Sure.
All right. Talk to me. What's up?
So first, I just wanted to make a point. I know you were talking about how our understanding of child rearing has progressed due to, sociological, psychological studies, and we know more about how to do it than we did, say, 10 years ago. I would just like to make a point, and I think you would acknowledge this, that, the world is constantly changing, the environment, what's going on. And I think parenting has to adapt with it. So I don't think there's such thing as this is how you do parenting that's going to be applicable, 100 years from now.
I think there would be a baseline. So I think broadly speaking, Alfred, you and I are on the same page, but I mean, tell me if you'd push back on this. Like, I don't think there's ever going to be a time in the future that we go back on the idea of making sure children are vaccinated, right? Or making sure children are fed properly between the ages of 1 and 3, right? There's never going to be a time in the future where we go, oops, got that one wrong. Feed kids less,
Okay, well, being fed properly, though, is going to be that our understanding of what it means to be fed properly is going to change.
Sure.
Right. But again, that baseline is established, right? There's never going to be a time in the future that we say, feed your child nothing but dirt and air.
Well, to kind of tag on there, Alfred, do you know what Maslow's hierarchy of needs is?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm self-actualizing right now.
I fucking love that. Okay, then. we can disagree on what it means to meet those needs, and I think that we're going to wind up adding in nuance and changing things for sure. But those steps needed towards actualization are built upon so food stability, on the confidence that you're going to have a place to sleep at night, the confidence that you have people who care about you and love you, your ability to connect with other people, your ability to connect with yourself, right? And hit that kind of self-actualization point, right? Those building blocks up towards self-actualization, I think is what Elliot is pointing towards, right? Not necessarily that we're going to nitpick the food or, what it means to be well-fed, but just that that is a need in order to move to the next level.
Yeah. Like one of the things we have learned specifically in the last 10 to 15 years in this capacity, for instance, is we used to think that for newborns, it was best to try to stay away from more of those food categories that people tend to be allergic to, like shellfish or tree nuts, those types of things, right? The evidence now really seems to tell us that, hey, you should actually introduce those things to your newborn, that because it helps them build up a stronger, more long-lasting immune system throughout their life. So yeah, there are little things like that will change, of course. I mean, yeah, we're totally on the same page there, but we're never going to just radically reshift, and just go back to feed your child fucking rocks, But anyway, sorry, Alfred, go on with what you wanted to call about.
Yeah, my question was, you guys were talking about how you shouldn't insist that your child has a redeeming quality. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so I didn't say that. What I said is, if you think your child needs a redeeming quality, you've failed as a parent. I think I actually said the opposite of that, right? So I don't think a child needs a redeeming quality. And I think that if you're operating in a system that implies that your child needs a redeeming quality, then what that's doing is that's implying that your child is somehow insufficient. And fuck that. And fuck people who think that.
Does that make more sense, Alfred?
Like, if I didn't communicate well and this gives clarification, I am so glad you called.
Yeah, for sure.
I do not want people to walk away thinking that I think that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
No, well, no, I said, or you're saying that you shouldn't think of your child as having a redeeming quality?
No. If you think your child needs one.
Right. If you're saying the only way my child is good, or the only way I love my child is because they have this characteristic about them while everything else is crap, that's what Eric is using that statement as a reference to the indigo children and the crystal children stuff that we've been talking about. So basically what he's saying is these parents are looking at their child and they're seeing these other attributes that they don't like for whatever reason, right? They're not happy that the child exhibits these qualities. And so they go out of their way to find this one thing, that the fact that my child's fucking telekinetic, holy shit, that makes up for all the other bad stuff about him. If that's where your mindset is as a parent, you're a piece of shit.
Well,
I mean, no, I know that was a little bit harsh there at the end, but yeah, does that make more sense? Is that more clear, Alfred?
I think so. Do you believe in unconditional love for a child?
I believe a parent ought to have unconditional love for their child. And I think that people who have the capacity in their hearts to love a child unconditionally who's not theirs is someone who will make me cry every time. I think that a child does not ask to be brought into this world. And so the parent does not get to hold them being in this world against them. So yeah, no, I think in as much as unconditional love can be a thing, but I do have stipulations, right? Unconditional love implies to me that you might be willing to accept abuse. And I think that there are cases of elder abuse, and that kind of thing, which makes me shy away from the term unconditional love. But I think in the context that you're bringing it up, I think we're going to totally agree.
Yeah, I was gonna kind of
hedge that too.
Yeah, I was gonna get real,
Yeah.
nitpicky and stuff about, well, what do we mean about unconditional
Yeah.
love? Does that mean that we just allow the person to just behave, blah blah blah? But no, I think probably we're all in a very
Well,
similar
let's
headspace.
ask Alfred.
But
Alfred, what do you think?
yeah, sure. What do you mean by that? Yeah.
Just that you'll love the child no matter what he does or she does.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think holding people, for instance, this is my personal thoughts here. I think holding people accountable when they have done things that has hurt us or others, I think that is love. I think that is compassion. Because I do really believe, trust me, y'all, I can have some days where it is tough to feel this way, especially recently. But in general, I really do think that most people have a good heart and most people want good things for themselves and others. I think a lot of times bad things occur because we're just not super sure on what accomplishes our goals or the goals of others to give us those good things. So when somebody does something bad, when somebody does something that harms myself or people that I care about, it would not be loving to just allow them to continue to get away with that, right? It would
Yeah.
not be loving to not hold them accountable,
But
right?
you
What
could.
do you mean by hold them accountable?
Sure. I can give you an example, right?
Yeah.
So hey, I really love my cousin Joey. I don't have a cousin Joey, but just as an example, I really love my cousin Joey. It hurts me that I can't have a relationship with him because what he's doing is damaging to me, the family, or to himself.
Right.
So
Right.
setting a boundary doesn't mean you stop loving them. What it just
Right.
means is that you do need to understand that you can love somebody and they may not be able to be in your life because of whatever reason. So,
Right. Right.
and I
And you
think,
can still love somebody even if they've done a very atrocious, heinous
yeah,
act, and especially if they have spent the last 20 years of their life repenting and attempting to make amends, right?
yeah,
So, but that doesn't mean that they don't still,
yeah.
be brought to justice, right? That doesn't mean they still aren't accountable.
What do
And
you mean by justice and holding people accountable? Because
sure.
usually that
Yeah.
means punishment.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
what's implicit in what we're saying and what we're not saying that I think needs to be lined out clearly is that unconditional love is often used as a cudgel to force people into having really, really abusive relationships.
Mhm.
It's not often the case, but I think that for Elliot and I, when we talk about it, if we don't try to address that, then we're creating space for abusive people to continue to cudgel the, people in their lives with that idea that unconditional love doesn't mean they get away with everything.
Mhm.
Unconditional
Yeah.
love doesn't. Yeah. So a consequence of that might be they can't be in our house anymore.
That's
Maybe.
holding somebody accountable or bringing them to justice in this situation, I would say.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes it may go as far as they need to spend time in jail. Sometimes it's financial reward or
Yeah.
compensation. I
I'm
mean,
I'm
there's lots of different
I'm
ways to hold people accountable.
agreed. And I am shifting on my views around jail, but I think that that's could take an aside that I'm not willing to go down right now because it's
No. Yeah.
So
Our jail is punitive, not restorative. I have a huge problem
yeah,
with that.
all of that. But
For-profit prisons are disgusting. Yeah.
yeah,
But anyway,
Alfred.
is that or
Yeah.
yeah? Go ahead, Al.
What are your thoughts, Alfred? Hello? Oh no. Well, it's saying that the connection is still there. Oh, it says that he's muted for some reason.
Oh,
Alfred, are you still there?
Yeah.
Hey, I have no
sorry.
idea. It looks like you got muted for some reason. What are your thoughts?
Well, that term hold people accountable, in my view, it's often used by people who are like very vengeful and who want to punish, and it's like they've if they use hold someone accountable, it's like they've found the language that makes their thirst for revenge really seem noble. It's like, Well,
I
we
get
don't.
that sentiment, Alfred. I understand. I just want to jump in real quick because I think we might be able to just move this along real quick. Do you feel like from the examples that Eric and I have gave, of which I'll just list again real quick, could be like monetary compensation for you destroying somebody's property, could be telling somebody that although you very much value them as a person, because of their actions and their thoughts, they can't spend more time with you, or jail for breaking the law? Do you think those things are vengeful? Do you think those
Did you just say
examples
for their
fit in?
thoughts?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I have some family members who are really, really racist.
Yeah.
And being around them is not, it's rough. And so while they're family, and at the same time, if somebody is a eugenicist, if someone is a racist, if someone is, a bigot or hurtful to other people, then yeah, no, the way that they think could be a reason why I wouldn't add them into my life.
Yeah, do you think that's unreasonable, Alfred? Like if there was somebody you knew for a fact hated your guts and wanted to see you die in front of them, would you spend a lot of time around them? Or do you think it's a reasonable punishment? It's reasonably holding them accountable by saying, hey, man, I don't really want to be around you if that's what you're thinking about.
I think it's a rejection of their humanity. I mean, you move the goalposts a little. I mean,
What? Hold up. Go back and explain that sentiment. It's a rejection of their humanity? I don't think
Yeah.
that's an answer to anything I was saying. So go ahead and explain that for us.
I'm sorry, would you repeat the question?
Yeah. So you said rejection of their humanity, and we're curious about what you mean.
Oh, just the sentiment that this is a person I never want to be around. That's rejecting their humanity, in my view.
Well, rejecting
that?
their humanity would be to say
They're not
you're
a
a
person.
monster, you're not a person, you don't exist.
Right. This is a person that has thoughts that
Yeah.
undeniably cause harm to others and themselves. And because they persist in those thoughts to the point of acting them out on a regular basis, I don't want to be around them as long as they have those thoughts. How is that denying
Okay.
somebody's personhood?
Well, I'll tell you. So, just a second. You changed it again. So, there's a difference. Like not wanting to be around someone because of the thoughts in their head. That's really wild. And I noticed how you changed it. How because of the thoughts they have and how they act the thoughts out.
So again, let's go back. Let's just go back because you didn't like the first example. So I can bring it back up again. It's very, very simple. Alfred.
I think I might be able to mediate
All right.
this.
Go ahead. Please help.
Yeah.
Please help.
So Alfred, I think that Elliot was trying to give an extreme example. And I think that, Elliot, you did add in more there.
I did. Purposefully.
And
yeah, purposefully.
And so let's see if we can kind of
I'll
bring
roll it
this.
back.
Yeah, let's see if we can kind of cut out as much
Alfred,
extra as we can. So
there's somebody in your life right now. They say, hey, man, let's get a burger. But literally yesterday, they went through 45 minutes of deep, nuanced explanation, telling you that every single time they look at your face, they just really hope you die. You going to spend a lot of time with that person? You going to go grab that burger today? Just yes or no?
This is an
Pretty
extreme
simple.
example, but just trying to get the
But it's
concept
just
across.
thoughts. It's just thoughts.
It's not just thoughts. They told me.
Oh. I think if they didn't tell you, but they still thought that, that'd be even worse.
It'd be worse, right?
But I hear what you're saying.
How do I know?
Yeah, Alfred, I hear what you're saying. I don't think that we should be convicting each other of thought crimes, but I think that we should be able to establish boundaries. Now, a boundary is something that you can only set for yourself, right? A boundary that you set for another person is not a boundary, right? So I cannot deny somebody's humanity if I'm saying, hey, I'm not interested in having a relationship with you.
Right.
If I was denying their humanity, I'd be going around saying nobody should have a relationship with you. You are unworthy of or incapable of having a relationship, right? That would be kind of more along denying their humanity. But a boundary is just that. And you can love someone and still have a boundary.
Mm-hmm. And because telekinesis doesn't exist, the only way we can know people's thoughts is when they tell us. So that's kind of implied in knowing somebody's thoughts.
Right, but
just want to point that out.
Yeah. Like if it was, you know, the I don't know, the Patriots versus the Cowboys, and you didn't want to talk to them, that'd be fucking weird.
Yeah, that'd be a little weird for sure,
Yeah.
man.
So
For sure.
so
But
we're
like, if Eric,
we're not
if
being
Eric never,
arbitrary. The thing is, we're
right,
not being arbitrary.
right,
We're trying to make room for extreme examples so that people can't weasel their way into other people's lives and think that they deserve it.
right, right.
What are your thoughts? Oh, he's muted again. Why does Alfred keep getting muted? Alfred, I'm so sorry. You there?
I'm
Yes,
not
I
touching
am.
it.
I'm going to need to like cut out the gaps in time from us being like, hey, Alfred, can you talk? And you just being totally muted and not even able to talk. That's so, I'm so sorry. Please, what are your thoughts?
No, I think you guys clarified some issues. It's good to know.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. Thank you for calling. Thank you for asking. I feel like asking for that
Yeah,
clarity. If you're wondering, then I know other people are wondering. And that
yeah,
means that
yeah.
I'm not being a good communicator. So like, thank you for
I think this
calling.
was, I think this was great. And honestly, Alfred, I'm gonna go back and rewatch this. I'm gonna go back and rewatch this and see like, hey, was I saying that right? Was there some things that I need to kind of rework? And if you would too, and then I'm on like the second Sunday of every month. So if you go back and rewatch it and you're like, hey, no, actually, yeah, let me hold you guys to account on this.
Yeah.
Please give us a call.
Yeah.
So
Hold our
we
feet to
love
the
that.
fire. We're always happy for that.
Absolutely.
All right. Hey, Alfred, thank you for calling in. Okay. We have, man, that caller, we've gone through like 5 people calling in and then dropping and calling in and dropping, and they're all different people. I don't know if there's something going on in the system, but if you have called in, please
Yeah, just do it
call
again.
back,
Yeah,
because
call back.
we have Brendan in South Carolina that we're going to talk to, but there are other people. There are people in the live chat who are saying, "Hey, they want to call in. Call in. Let's do it. Let's have this conversation. I want this to be a conversation that we're having with you." Brendan, though, thank you for waiting on the line.
Hi. Sorry, I'm walking out to a different room. I was going to step outside, but somebody's cutting grass out there, and I didn't want to be out too loud.
No worries. I just needed to bump your volume down because the last guy was so quiet. So I think I've got you dialed in. What's on your mind? What's going on?
Well, I mean, I was just, with some of the earlier conversation that you guys were having, and talking about lots of different things, made me think about something that I've actually been, thinking about a lot recently.
Okay.
And talking to my wife about. So, as a little bit of background, I am pretty comfortable saying that I'm probably autistic, but in that place where, a lot of people, it's like, didn't get diagnosed as a child, have a lot of things that kind of make sense in that perspective, but I don't have that kind of concrete, like, medical diagnosis, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Recently, I have a 5-year-old son,
Mm-hmm.
and recently at his last doctor's appointment, we were talking to the pediatrician about some of his, some of the like issues that he has, with certain things, and some of his like temper issues and stuff like that. And
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned to the pediatrician that, when I was younger, there was this conversation around, like me possibly getting tested for autism, and it never really happened.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, well, that's a pretty strong possibility based on what you're telling me. And so it's like, and he's, talking about all the resources and things that I know that I struggled without when I was a kid,
Yeah. By the
and
way, I just want to like just jump in and say, Brendan,
yeah,
you're in such good company. Like
Yeah.
it is amazing how much of the atheist community has got a touch of the tism. Like, you're so good. So I'm glad you called in. I didn't mean to interrupt. I didn't know if I was going to have the opportunity to say that. So
that's fine. I just wonder. I wonder if there's a proclivity towards wanting good answers for things that might have anything to do with that.
I know, right? Maybe.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
with recent events, like in the current political climate, it's shooken me up to the point where I'm like, things like, a certain somebody, talking about wanting possibly a registry of like people diagnosed with autism. You know what I mean?
Well, so for people who are not in the United States, I think it's important that we clarify this because they might be thinking that we're conspiracy theorists because this is so fucking ridiculous that it doesn't sound real.
Right.
But the current administration here in the United States, about 2 weeks ago, there was an announcement that they were going to try and create a registry for everyone with autism so that they could track that. And
because I don't know if anybody's aware of this or not, but according to at least some high up individuals in the current United States government, children with autism will never play sports or make music or pay taxes or live meaningful lives in any way, shape, or form, despite, the millions of people who do that really successfully. So whatever, it doesn't matter. There's like 3 or 4 people in the MLB right now with autism, but whatever, it doesn't matter.
And also there's a huge number of professors and all of that in major universities that and I mean in every field of STEM.
Yeah.
But just
you telling me Steve Jobs? You telling me Steve Jobs?
I know.
I mean, come on.
But okay, so Brendan, number one, this is a YouTube show. We're just 2 assholes. And while I raised my younger siblings, I do not myself have kids. I've chosen not to, but I have worked with kids, and that is the experience that I'm coming from. I in no way I do not want to replace talking to professionals because that's their whole thing. But if you want my 2 cents, I can give it. And that is, it's tough right now. I would hate to have a child not have access to the resources they need to succeed. And if you're worried about there being some like a government issue that could negatively impact you or your child, that is reasonable. And so I think that the best thing to do is, how old's your child?
My oldest son is 5, and I have a younger one who's 2.
Okay, 5. So that's pre-K, right?
He's about to start kindergarten.
Yeah. So I think developing a relationship with that kindergarten teacher and starting to build a team, right? And you do already have a team, right? I'm sure you have a pediatrician, and things like that.
Yeah.
Like working with them to determine how to meet your child's needs is, number one, going to have other people who are seeing your child in different circumstances and able to help give that input, but also to give you a more well-rounded view of those things. Work with that team, talk with that teacher. And I would hate to live in a world where a child does not get access to the resources that they need. And also, I don't want to put a target on anyone either. For people who are adults who are never diagnosed, who have been masking their whole lives, if you don't need accommodations, I would say it's probably, maybe to me, don't, but
that's exactly been the root of my dilemma at this point. It's like, I thought, like a few months ago, I was thinking that, wow, I was actually like, I was tearing up in the pediatrician's office because I was like, the resources that you're telling me about right now would have meant so much to me as a kid. Right. And so I'm like, this would be amazing for my son. And like, and now I'm sitting here like, I mean, I made it without it. Am I better betting on that I can help him make it through too? You know what I mean? Because it's just, like you said, I don't want to paint a target on his back. Like, I want him to be set up for success as he can be.
But you also want him to have resources.
By the time that he's an adult, is the world going to treat autism like a target? You know what I mean?
I might be living in a fantasy world. I really hope I'm not, but I really do think that in the future it's not going to be a big deal. And I think it's hitting a growth pain because we're now realizing that we can no longer stigmatize it. And so my view is that the current administration is in its fighting, dying gasps, but it's a caged tiger right now, you know, and that's why it's lashing out as hard as it is. That is, again, my perspective. That doesn't mean it's right. And I think, I work with the people who are going to be working with your child. You know, talk to professionals about what they think that your child needs, so that you can have those resources available. And the fact that you are agonizing over this decision
exactly
only says good things about you as a parent.
Yeah. I kind of in line with what you were saying, Eric. I think some of what this is we're seeing right now, with autistic kids and people kind of, you know, making them a hot button issue and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
You can't call them the R word anymore. And there are some people that, despite what they may pretend, they really want to do that, which, you know, don't know why you would have that inclination inside you, but some people do very much seem to. So I think that's a bit of what's driving this. But I want to go back real quick, Brendan, to a thing I said earlier to all the parents, and I, you know, pissing them off, saying that you're probably a bad parent, at least a little bit. Let me soften this a little and give you the other angle to it, which is I think pretty awesome. One of the biggest things that parents struggle with, and again, I'm childless. I have no kids. I've never raised any kids or anything, right? But one of the things that parents often struggle with is making sure that they're not harming their child, making sure that they're not doing something that could put their child in a negative, you know, emotional or physical state, right? You probably will at some point do something, right? Like, okay, like my parents, they loved me, right? They loved me. And yet I got dropped once or twice because shit happens, you know? I mean, it just, stuff happens, right? Probably the mistakes that happen in the future, Brendan, for your wonderful children, they're probably going to be okay from them, okay? Especially what Eric said, which is, man, you are already putting in this much work. You are already putting in this much attention. As long as you are involved, as long as you are actively engaged and listening to what they need and want, what is going to make their lives better, not your life, but what is really focused on them, I think you're going to do freaking awesome, man.
Yeah.
No matter what resources, no matter what schools, no matter what fucking administrations are out there and people are raising hell, you know, because this whole time, ever since the 60s, ever since the 20s, ever since the 1820s, we've had autistic kids, we've had trans kids, we've had kids that love trains, we've had kids that hate trains, and every other fucking variety out there. And we have raised wonderful adults. We can do this. It is fucking tough though right now, man. So I really, really feel for you.
And as an adult, I think one thing that I've recognized a lot of is there are some people who kind of get offended if they find out that the impact of what they did hurt their child. You know, even if the intent is always good, the impact is not always what you want it to be, or not always what you thought it would be. And so just having that humility to listen and say, oh, I didn't realize that impacted you that way. You know, validating and understanding that where they're at might not be where you thought they were, or maybe not be where you think that they should be, but listening, validating, and then moving on from there and addressing the impact and not just the intent is good too. This feels like really unsolicited advice from somebody. I feel weird. I think you're probably, you know.
I don't think that you guys are saying anything that I haven't, you know what I mean, like said or enacted myself. You know, I don't spoil from the, you know what I mean, the statement that, you know, like you're probably a bad parent, even just a little bit, you know what I mean? Like I know that I have, you know what I mean? Like I like even now, you know what I mean? Like a 5-year-old is a lot more capable of expressing his experiences than I think a lot of people, you know what I mean, like want to give a 5-year-old credit for, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so I've been told by my son that I've done things that upset him, that scared him, that hurt his feelings, you know what I mean? And
But the fact that he can express
the best way that I can, you know?
Oh my God, the fact that your child feels comfortable and is capable of saying that at that age, I mean, that is a huge feather in your cap, bro. Like
Yeah.
you should be so proud that your child can actually come up to you and say, like, Dad, that upset me, or Dad, that made me sad, or I mean, that is
Yeah.
I know people who are twice my fucking age can't have that conversation with their parents.
No. Oh,
Can't
geez.
tell their mom that.
I had to walk on
Go ahead.
eggshells.
Right.
Yeah. But
That's awesome.
yeah. Rock on, Brendan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
trying to.
We're rooting for you.
Yeah, man. Yeah, call us back and give us some updates, man, as you're kind of navigating this, because I bet there's some things that you discover that would be beneficial for others with children, or just beneficial for, like you said, various adults that are now kind of recognizing these things in my childhood that, man, I really wish somebody would have looked at this. I really wish I could have had this. Maybe there's just something you discover along the way that you go, man, holy shit. So I was reading this book to my kid. It's like 4 or 5 year olds, right? And then we flip to this other page and I'm like, that's the most fucking profound thing in my life. I've been doing it for weeks now. My life's better. Like, please tell us about that, man. Cause there's a lot of people out there that could benefit. And at the very least, whenever you have troubles, man, and you're struggling, come back and we'll all just kind of collectively woo-saw about it together.
Okay.
Brendan,
And,
what's up?
yeah, I was just going to say, if you want to mention a kid's book that'll do that to you, it's called The Rabbit Listened, and that's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
What is it?
That one hits.
Wait, what's it called?
The Rabbit Listened.
I'm writing it down. Oh God, just looking at the cover of it makes me. Oh no. Oh no, Brendan, you had to know what you were getting into when you got that book.
This adorable little bunny and child hugging each other. Oh my God.
Yeah. Okay, Brendan, thank you for calling in. Take care of yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, you guys too.
Will do. All right. I do want to put the phone number out there. We've got multiple call screeners. We've got open lines. We'd love to take your call. 412-SKEPGEN. That's 412-753-7436. Or you can go to tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. That's tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. Especially if you are a member of one of the mentioned communities, because we've done a lot of talking about communities that are deeply impacted by these subjects. And if I'm shooting my mouth off, if Elliot is shooting his mouth off, and we need to fucking tone it back, call us. Yep. We want to know.
Yep.
We absolutely want to know.
Can I mention one person? I think you and I might have even talked about her before, Temple Grandin.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
Just a fascinating individual who has lived an incredible life. And one of the reasons I want to bring this up again is just to specifically counter various statements by individuals where they seem to very much take away the personhood of people with autism, right? They are very much denigrating these individuals to honestly, I mean, they're lucky to be viewed as animals by these people. That's how disgusting I think some of these ideas are. Temple Grandin has been the individual responsible for about 30 to 40% of all cattle holding and slaughterhouse facilities in this country. Now, you might have differences of opinion about animal husbandry and slaughterhouses and stuff. No problem. We talk about that. It's a different conversation. But this woman, a single individual, is responsible for designing and building about 40% of those facilities across our nation. An industry that is in the multi-billions of dollars in profit, to the point that they can casually lobby our government for decades with multiple billions of dollars. That is how much fucking societal influence people with autism can have. That is how many fucking goddamn tax bills people with autism can pay. Okay. Like absolutely stupid fucking statements from anybody that believes people with autism are incapable. Period. End of sentence.
Yeah. And if people are wondering why Temple Grandin had that impact, it's a truly profound empathy and gifted engineer.
Yeah.
That allowed
Really?
that injected much needed. I feel like there was so much unnecessary cruelty before Temple Grandin in this in the industry, and I think that what Elliot is talking about is those changes. So yeah, it definitely worth it. They're checking out. There's a movie. I actually learned about Temple Grandin through the most circuitous route ever. It's a song by Andrew Jackson Jihad called Temple Grandin.
Really? That's so odd.
I was like, who is this person? I looked up Temple Grandin. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. But yeah, no, fucking weird world. Yeah, we have people coming in and dropping out, and I'm wondering what's going on. So let's see if we can. I think there might be an issue with callback mode. Maybe we can see if we can get one call screener just in to see if that might help. I'm wondering if that might be impacting the callers. But if you've been calling in, please call back. We've got open lines. We do want to talk. I'm going to put the phone number out one more time, and let's see if we can get those people to call back in, because I've counted at least 5 different people who've come in and dropped out now, and that's a little frustrating. 412-SKEPGEN, that's 412-753-7436, or you can go to tiny.cc/SKEPGEN, that's tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. Let's move the conversation forward. So you know what? Now is actually a good time to talk about a couple of things. First, because I always forget, hey, if you like the show, hit the subscribe. Hit follow, hit the notification bell, whatever the case is. Leave a review if you're listening to it as a podcast, or leave a comment to get that traction up and going. Every little bit helps. And if you do want to support the show, and you can, consider going to patreon.com/skepticgeneration. That's patreon.com/skepticgeneration. That is what allows us to have open lines that we're paying for, that people all over the world can call in and we can have these conversations. So if you value that and you're able to self-support, please do. Also, if you don't want to sign up for a thing like that, that's totally understood. There are links to be able to do a one-time donation to SKEPGEN, or you can leave a super chat as well. We read the super chats at the end of every episode. So if you want your comment read on the air, leave a super chat and we'll make sure that we read it before we finish the show. That said, let's move into talking just a little bit while we're waiting for these calls to come back in. It is so uncomfortable talking about this stuff, because I'm talking about communities that I'm not necessarily a part of.
Yeah.
And these are such broad, diverse communities that I think we're seeing this this change of the like, how do I describe this? I'm sorry, I'm thinking out loud, but it's
No, it's okay, because I've got some thoughts. I've got some thoughts already too. Because
you go first. Okay.
Let me maybe this will put some stuff together for you. So, I've been around in this kind of space for a little while now, talking about a lot of different subjects. From the beginning, I have tried to have my focus on humanism, skepticism, secularism, those types of things, right? I think things like care for and proper education of various minority communities, right, is well in line with all of those things. I think they just, when somebody says to me stuff like, well, what do persons with disabilities and their rights, what does that have to do with skepticism or secularism or humanism? I just think that's crazy. I think that connection is so obvious to me. But I'm always happy to walk people through that point by point if need be. But in that space, right? Oftentimes, yeah, I find myself in conversations where, honestly, everybody looks like me. Everybody's a straight, cis white dude, you know, uh, not really. I believe me, y'all. I ain't living in fucking mansions. I don't have a shit ton of money, but I can pay my grocery bills and stuff, So I'm all right in that capacity, right? So everybody's really looking like me, and we're talking about people that very much are not represented in the conversation. And I think it is always incredibly valuable that those of us that find ourselves in those positions make sure that we are standing up for those people where we can, right? I don't like the idea, and I've heard this a couple of times, that you and I, Eric, we shouldn't have the conversations, that we cannot ever have the conversation about LGBTQ rights. We're not part of the community. We can't have the conversation.
I am.
Go ahead. You are. Sorry, I'm sorry. But apologize.
No,
but
okay.
that sentiment, that sentiment that is thrown out there, I think is problematic. That doesn't mean that white dudes need to just start taking the charge on every fucking conversation. Of course not. That is not in any way, shape, or form what I'm saying. But I don't think we should always be pushing off that responsibility to the people that are already taking the brunt of that fucking garbage. I should not always push off on my trans friends, hey, you go deal with this asshole. No, I can stand the fuck up. I can get up there and support. I can push back on this garbage, but I need to make sure that what I'm saying is right. And that's where I need to go back to the community. That's where I need to get understanding from them. And I need to be ready that if I do put myself in that position, when somebody comes at me and says, hey, man, that was fucked up. You were wrong. I need to go, wait a second. Whoa, hang on, wait a second. If I'm supposed to be representing them and that's what they're telling me, I need to change. Yeah. I need to step back. Well, and that's tough. I understand. All of that is difficult.
And so I also, I remembered the thing that I was going to say and how to say it.
Good. I was hoping.
Good. I feel like we societally, man, we have more callers coming in and they're getting dropped. And I don't know why. Next time a caller comes in, I'm just going to see if I can grab them. Maybe that'll help. I don't know what's going on. But I think that there is a paradigm shift that our society is going through right now that I hope we're going to look back at this and go, oh yeah, no, it was just growing pains. But when a diagnosis like autism is put out there, it used to be a bigger deal. But we have now just over this show talked about university professors, engineers, parents, and like across the diaspora, across all types of peoples and all types of communities to varying degrees of professional or familial, success. And it's that I think that the thing that's missing is people still need to recognize that autism is just a way of being, is just an adjective in the same way that brunette is an adjective, in the same way that blonde is an adjective. And when you recognize that a vast group of people can all be different and yet have this kind of diagnosis, you also need to take into account that they are not they're not a monolith. And so if somebody says, hey, that was right or that was wrong, that doesn't mean that they're speaking for all people like them. Right. So having that level of nuance is tough too, especially as we're seeing more and more, we're growing and more people are recognizing, oh, hey, maybe it's not as stigmatized as a idea as I thought. Maybe I might have this. Right. You know what I mean? I don't know. Right. I feel like we're coming against that. Anyway.
No, I think that's an awesome point. And exactly, a while ago, many years ago, it wasn't considered a spectrum. It was a switch. You either were autistic or you weren't, you know? And now as we've continued to understand these things, we understand that, hey, actually, yeah, like there are these, you know, gradients, there are these variations, right? And it somebody isn't necessarily, you know, just all the way on one side or the other, you know?
Yeah.
And that is beautiful. I understand, okay, because I'm gonna speak to the people that may not exactly be in my camp right now. Go ahead, please.
1 second, really quick. I'm gonna try that thing that I said
You
really
just want to
quick.
grab that? Yeah.
So, John, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Cool. I'm gonna pop you back in
Awesome.
the queue. That way, now I know that you're here. That way we don't lose you again. And we're gonna get to you as soon as we're wrapped up with this. Okay?
I'll wrap up real quick.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll wrap up real quick because this is to the, honestly, this is to the people that you know, they find themselves in that camp of saying things like, you know, back when I was a kid in the fucking 50s, there weren't, you know, autism wasn't a thing, you know, ADHD hadn't been invented yet, you know, that type of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So this is to you guys, okay, kind of. Hey, look, I understand that it's a little confusing. I understand that maybe, honestly, even for the majority of your life, 3/4 of your life, this hasn't been a thing. I get that it can be complicated and there can be a lot of terminologies and it shifts, you know? I understand. I would also like to point out that when you were a child, many of the businesses that you patron on a regular basis were not in your town, right? You didn't have the styles of cars or the clothing or the television shows, right? You have, in fact, operated in this capacity in absolutely every other part of your life the entire time. And doing so made your world more richer, more beautiful, and more interesting. And that is what will happen here. By allowing other people the space that they are already occupying and not continuing to try to just beat them down and pretend that they're not there, your world will be better.
Yeah.
Your world will be better. So, you know, just, I get it. It can be a little tough, you guys. But again, if you really do sit the fuck down and think about it for about 5 seconds, you're going to say to yourself shit like, man, that grocery store wasn't even there 5 years ago. You know, that dentist didn't even exist last year, you know? So you will be fine. I promise.
The people in the comments are talking about how getting diagnoses for themselves have been life-changing. And, that's the same for me too. Like not being diagnosed with ADHD until I was an adult. Absolutely. Things could have been a whole lot easier for me if I was getting therapy and help for that. If I'd learned you know, it's amazing. It's amazing. I don't know, for ADHD, so this is my little tangent is, you know how the people get nervous about drinking grapefruit juice because it can make the medications that you're drinking or that you're taking way stronger. Have you heard that?
Yes, I have. When I learned that fact, it was fascinating. It is true, you guys. Grapefruit juice can fuck with your medications. Super
like
weird.
Crazy.
Yeah.
My ADHD was to my anxiety and depression like grapefruit juice. Like it was the unknown X factor that once I found that out, everything else got easier to treat. You know, it just, it was a big difference for me. Okay, finally we've got callers. I told John that we'd talk to him first and then we'll move on and talk to Susie. And looks like we've got another person calling in possibly. John, you are on the air.
Hi, Eric. How are you? How's your Sunday?
Hey, I'm doing good. V and I are going on a date after the show. He's going to a conference starting next week, and so anyway, I'm sharing probably way too much about myself. John, what's going on? What's up?
Before we start, I just want to say hello to your partner. Hello, secular rarity.
Hey.
Nice, appreciate that. Yeah, awesome. So what? It looks like you want to talk about autistic children.
Yeah. Before we talk about that, I just want to say that I want to make a revelation about myself is that I myself have been diagnosed with a learning disability.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just heard that you have ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so when I heard that, I felt that it resonated with me because I can identify.
Yeah. So were you diagnosed when you were young or not until you were an adult?
Very young.
Young? Oh, I'm so jealous.
A baby, actually.
Yeah, I'm glad. That means that you were more likely to get, help that you needed. But I'm glad you're comfortable to share that. So what's your perspective on this conversation?
Well, I heard you earlier say that. Okay, I don't know. Telepathy is not important, but you're saying that if a child doesn't live up to his parents' expectations, then the parents should. What exactly were you saying? Like, I think
Sure.
you say the parents should love the child regardless. Is that what you were saying?
Yes, and I think that did you ever watch like those movies in the 90s that had to deal with special ed adults? Like there were a bunch of them, like Rain Man or What's Eating Gilbert Grape or any of those?
Well, I remember a show in the 90s called Life Goes On where they had a character who had Down syndrome. It was played by an actor who really did have Down
Nice. So, okay. Back in like the 90s, there were actors who did not have these diagnoses who were playing characters. And what they did is they made people with like learning disabilities like magical. And it was really weird. And what it did, I think, is for an entire generation of adults, if their child had a learning disability, that adult was like, oh, I bet you my kid has magic abilities. Mm-hmm. And they would be disappointed if they found out that their kid didn't have magic abilities. And that's really sad, isn't it? Like if a parent is disappointed because their kid isn't magic, like that's a really kind of fucked up expectation, right?
Oh, magic doesn't exist.
Yeah. And so I think that there are parents, when I said redeeming, what I mean is that a parent might see their child as having like negative impact and that they've got to be special in order to redeem themselves. And it's a really gross thing that I've seen happen. And I think that when people talk like that, they set parents up to have these horrible expectations for their kids that their kids could never live up to. And so what I said earlier was, if a parent thinks that their child needs to have a redeeming quality, then you're implying that children needs to be redeemed. Your kid should be enough just as they are. They don't need to do extra. They don't need to be magical to deserve your love. That's kind of what I was saying.
Okay, remember the first episode of the Cosby Show when Bill Cosby was talking to Theo, and he was coming down on him about his grades, and then Theo made a big speech saying like, "You should love me anyway because I'm your son." And all of a sudden the audience clapped, and then Bill Cosby got up and said, "Theo, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard you say. No wonder you can't do anything."
You know, it's funny, but also Theo was right. And Cosby was very wrong. You know?
Why do you say that?
Because I think that like kids don't choose to be born.
No, you don't.
You're just born. You're born into this world. You don't get to choose your parents either. And
no, you don't.
Yeah, and so I think that if you have a kid, you should want to love them. You should want to care for them, and you should understand who they are. And I think that back when the Cosby Show was running, that was the thought, is that parents should be able to force their kids to be exactly what they want them to be. And I think that those kids grew up to have bad relationships with their parents. And,
I see.
And I think that's really sad, because if the parents would have just gone, hey, you know what? I see you and I love you just the way you are. Maybe they would, as adults, still have good relationships with their parents.
Well, don't you
Some
agree
people,
that?
some people.
Are you going to say something secular?
Yeah, real quick. I heard somebody say this the other day. I was hanging out. We were chatting, and I might say it a little bit wrong, but basically the sentiment was some people want to be parents, and some people want to have kids, and there's a difference between those mindsets. One is in the capacity of building up this human being that has never had a chance before, helping this individual become the most full and capable adult that they could possibly be, right? Whatever that is.
And that's being a
then
parent.
and that's being a parent. And other people want a figurine that they can parade around and they can show people how good they are. Look what I did. I made that. I made that. They want the joy and the pride from all of the achievements of that other human being. That's what they really want at the end of the day. The parenting group. The parenting group is the one you should try to emulate, not the ones that just want kids.
So are you saying that parents want people and the other people want an accomplishment? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's very selfish when somebody only wants kids so that they can be congratulated.
Right.
Right. You should want kids because you want kids.
Right.
Well,
you should want to raise capable, functioning people, full-rounded people, right? You shouldn't have the desire of looking at this child and saying to yourself, they're going to match every one of my fucking expectations or else, That is a gross mindset in my opinion. And I think it's one, honestly, we have good reason to believe pretty much has been the case for a long time. I mean, if you think about it, right? For a long, long, long time, all children were workhorses. You were a slave or a future prize to be sold off so that somebody could make money from you, right? If you were a boy, great, you got to be a slave your whole life.
Go work in the mines.
If you were a girl, fantastic. You got to be somebody's property and sold off so that the family could eat. That has been the way we've reared children for a really, really long time, and I think that is problematic. And just touching back on what Eric was saying a little bit ago, because I do think it's pretty accurate, is that I think that mindset is having a massive shift. I think a lot of people in the world are recognizing why that old mindset is problematic. And I think a lot of those people in that camp don't like that. Again, there are a lot of people out there that the reason they're talking about autistic kids these days, honestly, is just because they're mad they can't call them the R word anymore. And I'm just not gonna hold a lot of space for those people. I'm just not gonna give those people a lot of ground.
I'm not even assuming those people are watching the show. I
sure fucking hope not. Yeah. I mean, if you are, you call us, but shit.
John,
out there.
John, I definitely want to give you room to speak up. Does that give you a little bit more clarity in what we're talking about?
Yes, it does. But do you agree that children should be encouraged to reach their full potential?
Oh, hold on. Whenever you call, it's really low, and I don't think I heard what you said. Could you say that again?
Do you agree that children should be encouraged to reach their full potential?
Absolutely. Of course, yeah. No, totally. But I also think that you need to know what your kid's potential is. And if you think that
I agree.
Yeah, and if you think that potential includes magic powers, that kid's never going to live up to it. It's kind of setting them up for failure.
Well, let's not talk about magic powers.
Well,
let's give a more realistic example.
John, I wish we could. The thing is I had a friend reach out to me who said, I think these kids have magic powers. It's a real thing people are talking about right now. That's why we're talking about it, because it's something that's going around. And if we don't talk about it, isn't that crazy? We can't be, I wish everybody could be realistic like that, but this is something that's happening right now.
Okay, well, in a more realistic scenario, let's say a parent is encouraging the kid to be, like, let's say, a basketball player, or to be the NBA, or they want their kid to, I don't know, to be the next Einstein. that is an unrealistic expectation that the kid's not capable of it.
Most likely, yeah.
And there's a difference between encouragement and forcing, right? And there's a difference between teaching a life lesson and then just like beating a dead horse. So, for instance, okay, probably there's a good handful of folks out there that have some familiarity with this reference, right? A little kid gets all excited, wants to go join a basketball team, right? First game of the season, gets up there, gets on the court, doesn't really like it, goes home, says, Mom, I don't want to fucking play anymore. I'm done playing basketball. And the mom and dad say, you know what? You signed up for the team, kid. You got to finish out the season. You made a commitment and you got to be responsible. You
Elliot,
know?
I have no idea where you're going.
Okay, just give me a second.
Okay.
That is a massively different scenario than waking your child up at 5 a.m. every single day and putting a basketball in their hand as they desperately plead with you that they hate basketball. The first one is teaching and encouragement. The second one is forcing and manipulation. So that is a big difference, and that's important. Yes, kids should be encouraged to finish things out. Yes, kids should be encouraged to push past their current limitations and exceed to great heights. But we also need to make sure that we are moderating that. And there are very, very clear instances. Again, the first one, the kid signed up, doesn't want to do it after the first game. Hey, you got to finish out the season. If you sign that kid up for 3 more fucking basketball seasons, bro, you just forcing your kid to play basketball because you just want your little soldier to do whatever the fuck you say, you know? So that's where I was going with all of that. Okay. I hope did I land that plane all right, Eric? Did that come out?
Yes. I don't know if John disagrees with you. And so John, I want you to have I want you to have the chance, and then I know we have somebody else who has a really, really important thing that I want to make sure we get to. So John, what are your thoughts?
I agree with what Seko said. The first one is encouragement. The second one would be child abuse. However, do you guys know the difference between equality and equity?
Yes, and that is a conversation that I think needs more time than we have, because we only have about 10 minutes left in the show. So why don't you call in back if you think we disagree. If we already agree, then it's probably not going to be a useful conversation for people watching. But I'd be interested in continuing conversations with you on another day. I'm glad.
Okay.
All right. I'm glad you called in. Take care, John.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, so I need to remember to turn the volume way down so the next caller doesn't blast our ears out. But I asked for people who are represented, or are part of these communities to call in, hold us accountable. And I think we have a person who's calling in just like that. I want to talk to Susie in Minnesota and give Susie as much time as Susie wants. Hey.
Hey.
Okay, so I'm just going to turn you down just a little bit. You sound nice and clear. I'm very happy. I just want to make sure that it's not too loud. Susie, what did you want to talk about today?
So I am autistic, and I have worked with autistic children for about 10 years now.
Okay.
And I also recently started working in a trauma program that works with families too. And in my current job, I'm working more with families than I did at the school I used to work at.
Okay.
That's awesome.
And my current intense interest is reading and learning about autism, neurodiversity, trauma, things like that. There's a couple of great books that I've read recently.
Okay.
That I would like to recommend as resources.
I'm absolutely happy to. I do, though. I'm so curious. How badly did I butcher things? How did we do?
I wouldn't say that you are butchering things. I want to push back on saying that someone is a terrible parent for this and that, because I really, maybe I'm naive about this, but I really strongly believe that everybody does the best they can with the resources and the information and the nervous system that they're working with.
I hate to push back, Susie, but I disagree. I think we've got more than enough information out there about parents that have actively abused their child, right? I wish we lived in a better
Yeah.
world. I wish we lived in a world where there weren't people that actually believed the earth is flat and Jews control lasers that cause fires in California. But unfortunately, we do have those people. And I think we have to be clear-eyed about those people. I would probably say you're right when you say like the vast majority. I don't think it's 50%. I don't think it's 20%. I think 80 some odd percent of the people out there are, yes, exactly in that boat. They are doing the best they can with the situation they have. And that's why I think education is so valuable. Unfortunately, I do think there is still
And I
a
also
group out
think
there.
that people don't choose what they believe.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100% agree with you, Susie. Yeah, 100%.
And also, as far as the abuse part goes, I think it's terrible and it's wrong, and
Sure.
nothing makes it okay. And also, I want to take a little bit of a look at the parent's perspective on that
Mm-hmm.
and say, the book that I read recently is called Spare the Kids, and it's about whooping and like beating kids
Yeah.
and
Corporal
where the
punishment.
parents are coming from with that. And like, sorry.
Oh, I just added corporal punishment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just
and
getting on the same
I
page.
think it's terrible and it's wrong. And oftentimes parents are working with how they were raised and what their parents did. And like, that's what they learned. And being afraid that if they don't do it, the police are going to do it worse. And
Mm-hmm.
they're trying to like make sure that their kids grow up to become safe, that they grow up. And so some of that is behind that. And like, it doesn't make it okay. And like, I work with these kids that will like tell me about stuff that their parents did. And like, we're working with the families on stuff too. And like, sometimes we have to call CPS. And
Absolutely.
we're trying to work with the families to figure out like what is going to be best for the child and like teach the parents skills, teach the kids skills. And I just, it doesn't make the abuse okay.
Yeah.
And also like we're trying to work with the parents on like learning how to parent their children. Like we tell the kids.
So
I think that is the right
that their
approach.
parents are learning how to be safe mad. Sorry,
Yeah.
can you repeat that?
Oh, I
was
think
just
both of us are
agreeing,
wanting to like give you affirmations. Yeah, we
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, love this.
I can I offer up a little bit of language that helps me in this scenario? So I learned it when I was in my freshman year of college. I had a professor who kind of blew my mind. I didn't know what the difference was between a reason and an excuse. Have you heard about that? Like the difference between a reason and an excuse?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so an excuse is excused. It is a reason that is accepted, and you have an excuse, right? I didn't show up to work on time because traffic, absolutely, there was a massive car accident. That's an excuse, right? A reason is just understanding where their mind was. I didn't show up because I didn't want to. I didn't feel like it, right? You might know why somebody did a thing, but that doesn't mean it's an excuse. And so what you're providing are reasons. You now have a reason for why this parent is abusive, right? But it's not an excuse, right? The parent can give their reason for abusing their child all day long. They can say, hey, here's why I did it. And understanding why they did it, okay, that helps, but that doesn't get them off the hook. It doesn't make it better. And it doesn't mean, in the same way that you're saying that you sometimes have to call CPS, it doesn't matter how much the parent gives you the reason, it's not an excuse.
Right.
And so
You still did the thing.
Yeah, I think it shows, remarkable capacity for empathy when you can try and find out why abusive people are abusive. But we also have to make sure we draw a strong line that doesn't excuse their bad behavior. Would you agree?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in order to help them become better parents, we have to understand their perspective and what's going on.
And meet them where
there
they're
are cases short of actual abuse. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I just cut in because I'm excited and I'm liking so much of what you're saying, Susie. And yes, I think the approach that you are describing here, okay, is not only the 100% spot on exact approach for this, I actually think it's the right approach for everything. And I think the more that we have learned about the ways that people's minds change, because again, Eric and I are on the exact same fucking page when you say we don't choose these beliefs, right? They are forced upon us by outside things, right? Internal thoughts that we have, right? It is not, I don't wake up in the morning and just go, yeah, I'm going to believe this is a water bottle. No. Okay. And so recognizing where people are, understanding people's reasons, not excusing the behaviors, but understanding the methods that brought them to the conclusions that they are currently espousing, that is the way that we make progress. That is the way that we can actually make a fucking difference. And so honestly, I'm so thankful, Susie, for the stuff that you do, because it is that on the ground tangible work that makes anything that fucking Eric and I say on here worth a shit.
We're just two assholes on the internet. I gotta say,
we're building off of you.
Yeah, Susie, when I read the description of your call, it says you wanted to talk about having empathy for parents with children, parents of children with autism. I didn't know where you were going to go with it, and so I want to make sure that you have.
I didn't either, to be honest.
Okay,
but, I do have one other thing that's like more specific to the children with autism and not necessarily about abuse and trauma. Well, trauma, yes. But like we also have parents that come in and they're like maybe force feeding their kids because their kids have sensory issues and they won't eat. And the forcing them to eat certain foods or like the physical force or whatever that like goes into meal times makes the mealtime more challenging for the kid. And like the parents, if we see the parents' perspective, they're afraid ultimately that like their kid is going to die if they don't properly feed them. And so they're doing these things that are really detrimental to the kid's mental health and their like ability to eat. But it's because like the parent has the kid's best interest in mind and really cares about them. And so like
we just need to talk about sensory issues.
Perspective and see why.
Yeah, we just need to talk about sensory issues. Like the more we talk about it, the more they might understand, oh, hey, sensory issues are a thing. You know, we got to give them things that can help change their beliefs by showing them that that exists. Like, yeah, I had a whole thing and I fully lost it. I'm sorry. I was listening to you, Susie, and I wanted to engage with you directly, but I had a whole thought. Elliot, is there anything else? Because I want to try and grab that thought back.
I'll say some things just real quick, just to wrap it up. Because again, I think, you know, what you're doing, broadly speaking, Susie, is exactly the way that we need to be engaging. It is incredibly fucking difficult, though. And I bet you have some stories about some times that were tough. So I just want to encourage you to keep
I find it really
going.
hard myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
Okay.
So.
I had it. Okay. So Susie, taking all of that, right? Understanding that a parent is trying to do their best. In the real world that we're in, though, like what's freaking me out is just imagine being a child who is not able to communicate and your parent is saying, oh, you're telepathically telling me what you want. I totally know what you want. And them just doing things because they think that that's what you told them psychically. Like that, to me.
And I think on some level, parents are looking at their like subtle cues, like they know the kid really, really well.
It could.
And they're looking at the child's subtle cues about what they might be wanting.
And
hopefully.
Right. Hopefully. We really hope that's the case. But if I had somebody who was just like going, oh, no, you're total, like that feels like a horror movie. I could not imagine, you know, that is, I have no mouth, but I must scream, right? This idea that, you know, people are just going to do to you what they think that you want without like, holy crap, it's scary. To be nonverbal.
And with kids that are not able to communicate much of their needs, like it happens all the time. And there isn't necessarily a way to know what they want and
Well,
need without really trying to read their cues.
well, I mean, we do have communication boards. We do have methods of communication that we've developed. I think what's
Yeah.
important though is you always
Oh,
need to.
I know. We use them all the time.
Yeah, you need to have that in the kid's hand though. You can't make their hand
Yep.
touch the board and go, that's what they want every time. When you're teaching them how to use
Yeah.
it, yes. But if you're like, it's wild. If you get the chance to take a look at the telepathy tapes and call back in, I'd be interested in your perspective. It drove me nuts. It made me so angry that
Yeah,
I
and
wanted to
I've
do an entire
seen-
episode on it.
I worked with someone who used facilitated communication with kids, and I heard a story that was very, very concerning from that.
Okay.
It was secondhand, so I don't want to like get into it too much, but
Sure.
it was concerning.
Yeah. And we again, right, we can say, hey, they probably think they're doing the right thing. And that is
I'm
a
not
reason, but
sure with
man,
that person, but that person wound up being fired.
good. I mean, whatever reason they had, it does not excuse the fact that they probably robbed that child of their ability to have any kind of autonomy, you know? So,
Yeah. And this is one of those, dealing with children is one of those things that I think rightfully we all get our hairs up, right? We all get kind of tense and we get kind of nervous about the way that people engage in those capacities. I think raising children and caring for children is one of those things that as a society we really need to double, triple fucking check ourselves on what we're doing. Right? We have to make sure that we go so fucking far out of our way to put safeguards in place because, and again, I think rightfully so, the vast majority of people, whenever they hear about something atrocious happening to children, it adds an extra layer of disgusting, you know? And so that is why I just think it is such a fucking travesty that we still currently live in a system in the United States, in the fucking United States. We live in a system where there are still hundreds and hundreds of thousands of children that are not receiving proper care, proper education, proper nutrition. And it is an absolute fucking shame. And so again, Susie, I know probably there are some days, especially recently, that have been a real fucking struggle. And I just really want to say thank you for everything you do and just keep fucking going. And if you ever need some encouragement, come back here and hang out with some folks and tell us how things are going. Cause I just want to encourage you just like crazy. I mean, you're doing amazing.
And if I ever pop off about the
Thank you.
autistic community and you want me to shut my mouth, call in, let me know.
That's right.
I'm happy to listen. I am just like
Okay,
everybody else, trying my
generally
best.
speaking, what you're doing is really good, and like you're changing hearts and minds with the approach that I believe is the best approach, like meeting people where they're at and trying to understand their perspective. And so I think like what you guys are doing is so helpful on the other end of things, like
Appreciate
getting
it.
the perspective or like meeting the parents or whatever that might possibly be listening to the show where they're at and changing their minds about some of that stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
That's what we hope.
Thank you. That's the hope. Susie, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for calling.
Thank you.
Take care. I do want to clarify. Yeah, right. I did see some people in the chat talking about, oh, wow, I didn't know the difference between reason and an excuse. While that is cool, colloquially, they've switched. So some people apply different meanings. It is important to check in with people to see what their understanding of those words are, or else you can accidentally talk past each other. But just knowing that you can draw a line between understanding why a person does things and then going that extra step and saying that is excused, I think is just important. So yeah. Anyway, Elliot, we're over time. So let's read super chats. Let's do that really quick. My Unfinished Journey sent $2.22. Thank you, My Unfinished Journey. It says, Hail Nero, Eric, SR, and good parenting. Cheers to that.
Nice.
Especially on today, Mother's Day, that I totally remembered.
Yeah.
Phil Diesel sent $10 and says, all parents screw up their kids. Good parents just do it less. The whole relationship is built on extreme violation of consent.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I don't even know if good parents do it less as much as they have the humility to recognize that they may be doing it.
And try to fix any of the.
We did definitely touch on some anti-natalist points today. There are people in the chat who are talking about that. That is definitely an interesting conversation.
I'm going to be in the after show, so if you guys want to talk about anti-natalism stuff in the after show, come hang out.
Yeah, I'm going to be going on a date with my partner and calling my mom after the show, so I won't be there, but Elliot, you will be. So thank you for doing that. Thank you all for being here. Again, if you want to support the show, consider going to patreon.com/skepticgeneration. That's patreon.com/skepticgeneration. It just helps us make sure that we can afford the programs and keep the lights on and keep seeing you every week. So thank you all for being here. Elliot, where can people find you?
You can go check me out on Secular Rarity. You can go look up all the things. But what you should actually do is go look up this brand new 501c3 nonprofit organization based in Middle Tennessee called Secular Rising US. We have all kinds of different local events that we are putting on. We are working on a big project for the end of the year. We've already got NanoCon is a conference that's happening in July. We have a bunch of freaking things and we need a lot of help. So if you have time and you have skills and you are interested, I promise I have some stuff for you. So Secular Rising US. Go check us out.
I love it. I'm so glad. I want you to plug that every episode you're on. I want that plug. Elliot, thank you for joining me. It's always fun hanging out with you.
I know, dude. I know. I was missing you. I was just texting you like the other day, and I was like, man, I just miss you. I just feel like we haven't had time to hang out as much. We're both just running around. So I always love being on here and hanging out with this community. So.
I know that this community loves you too, and I look forward to the next time you're on, and you and I are going to be hanging out before then. We need to.
Yes.
That said, link to the after show is in the description. Elliot hopes to see you there. And thank you so much to all of our amazing volunteers. We had numerous volunteers who are practicing on the call screening, who are helping on the Discord, who are moderating the chat, who are just all across the board. Thank you so much. There's no way we'd be able to do this without you. Until next time, I'm Eric Murphy.
I'm Secular Rarity.
This is Skeptic Generation.
We're glad we had this talk.
You got it.